We are Planet Green Trees. Call number is 1-347-326-9626. We're making the case tonight for why we're making the medical case for the relegalization in Michigan of marijuana because of the torture that's gone on to the patients and the failure of the government to implement the act. We're going to now go to Lawrence Smith. Lawrence Smith is a retired Detroit police officer, Vietnam veteran, awarded the Bronze Star and Purple Heart. And since he left the military, he was in the police force, and marijuana helped his treatment of his migraines and serious headaches that he had after he returned from serving our country. Lawrence is going to talk about his involvement as a police officer. Lawrence, thank you so much for calling in. Thanks for joining Planet Green Trees.
How are you doing? How are you this evening?
Great. Thanks for calling in. Tell us a little bit about your background. I know you said that you were in the Vietnam War. Thank you for your service and welcome home.
I spent a total of 14 months in Vietnam. I achieved the Bronze Star and Purple Heart while I was there. Started on my second tour of duty when I was injured and sent home.
Wow.
Some applause for a war hero.
Right, exactly. And then, of course, returned home and went to work in the police force in Detroit, right? And you were working for 7 years, is what I understand. Is that correct?
Well, it was a total of 8 years, and due to my migraines and post-traumatic stress symptoms, I could not keep along that avenue, so I took a medical retirement.
Okay. And you told some very interesting stories to me earlier today about how one of the ways which you were treating your condition of these migraines while you were a police officer.
Well, one of the things I noticed was the medication that I was taking that was prescribed for me was making me inactive. There was a period of time that I would be down. I'd be like a zombie due to the heaviness of the medication. And jokingly, a friend said, well, try this. It might lift your head up. And I took it, and I said, well, it is helping me. Let me see if I'll try, without taking medicine, see what happens. And back even before Excedrin was used for migraine headaches or Tylenol to be used for migraine headaches, I found out through other sources and knew and used Excedrin to stop the onset of migraine headaches if you catch it in time. So I started using the pattern basically of over-the-counter Excedrin and marijuana. And ironically, that would help in the alleviation of the migraine headaches.
That's a great story. Sure.
And I know we talked about it, and you're talking openly about it. You were challenged with you wanted to work. You had a condition that you were able to self-medicate and find a combination of medications that allowed you to continue, and it obviously became to the point where you had to retire. But you were functioning as a police officer while you were medicating with cannabis. Is that correct?
That's correct. But, the funny thing about it is as long as I would over-medicate myself, use chemicals that was deadly to my body, it was okay. But the minute I found something to stop the poison and the toxins into my body and find a way to help myself and be more functionable, actually, I would cut my downtime almost down from 2 to 3 days down to practically nil. And that was a bad thing. So you have to kind of go undercover and do what you have to do at some time.
Right. I mean, it's like the old mother bear story. What is someone going to do for your child, or if it involves health? I mean, how far are you going to go when you know that it works for you? And it's unfair for the government to get involved in that those activities, which is what's been happening. Now, what is give us the insight to how your experience with other law enforcement officers to marijuana. Really, we know, up till now it's been illegal for all intents and purposes. Even though I know Detroit 2004 they passed a medical marijuana city ordinance. I don't know how often it was used, but what was your experience with law enforcement as far as their view towards marijuana?
Well, you know, you've got to actually break down the law enforcement officer you're dealing with. You've got one type of law enforcement officer who will buy the farm. If he's told to go out there and do this, this is what he's going to do, regardless of what his personal feelings are, or et cetera. And then you've got another type of officer that he just wants to come to work and make his money. And sometimes that is how he'll make his money. I mean, making a marijuana arrest is the easiest arrest out in the street. You can always find an arrest. And although most people think police officers are driven to write a ticket, they're not driven to necessarily write a ticket, but they are driven to show activity. And
marijuana patients are those zero risk.
Is getting a marijuana arrest. You see, so that's how it's difficult. And you know, that's where I came in great conflict because of my own challenges, I would never put myself in a position to make those type of arrests. You know, I couldn't find myself to be hypocritical knowing what I was doing and then go out and arrest someone for the same thing. So it helped me in another vein because the avenues I did choose for my expertise was armed robbery, and that made me a better person. You see what I'm saying? Because I executed that to the kill, you know, and I didn't have to answer the question why I wasn't doing other things.
Right. You know, I remember when we were talking before, you told a story which is just the, unfortunately, it's a classic story of the war on drugs. And you described how there was a young man who really genuinely was caught involved with something that was over some little marijuana, and how it destroyed his life. Do you care?
Destroyed his life, right, yeah. Right. You know, and I remember that because, you know, I was a backup officer to that scene. I wasn't the original officer, so as a backup officer, you're there just to provide backup. You're not privy to really give any advice as to whether or not that's arrest. And I remember because these were two very young kids, and one of them was a college kid, and he was home for the summer, and you could tell by the whole experience just tore him apart. You know, the fear, the fact of being arrested, the police there, the sirens, the cars. He got the message. It was very obvious he got the message. And one of the things he, you know, was worried about was the fact that he had just got the scholarship and et cetera, and he was going to lose the scholarship. And, you know, on the scene, I thought about it, but I didn't believe it at first. But as it went on, the young boy was arrested. He was taken in for marijuana. Later on, we found out that the young kid had lost a scholarship. And unfortunately, we made more contact with him out in the street, and finally he was arrested for armed robbery. And I always go back to that one point that had not that happened to him and that smudge been put on his record, I mean, he got it. You know what I'm saying? And to me, as a law enforcement officer, the one thing you want to put out there is, did you get the message?
I mean, I can't tell you the number of lives that I've seen destroyed that when they're brought into the court system. It's not a friendly place, and I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy. There's no resources to help people, and what unfortunately happens is you get a lot of form over substance and people that get caught up in the system and can't get out and, you know, violate terms of probation and, you know, whatever may happen, and bam-o, you get a judge is going to lock you up, and then all of a sudden what was is no longer, and you lose your scholarship and you have nothing left, and, you know, you get thrown out of your house. I mean, it's just terrible. It seems like, you know exactly.
Well, you know, unfortunately, just to give you an example, a lot of times when a young man is arrested for marijuana, it's not considered marijuana. It's considered drug. And very few people would take the time to say, oh, this is just marijuana. they will immediately group him as being a druggie.
Yep.
And that's not always the case. Yeah, and here he's hit with this tag. And from there, what is he going to do? If he tries to get out of this hole, he's always hit with this druggie flag that's placed on him. And if you heard the old saying, a lot of these young kids want to go to prison. They do. You know why? Because, one, they're going to eat. They're going to get their meals a day. The state pays for it. But number two, they're going to get an education where they haven't known how to arm rob or break into a house or do all these other things. They now have to get this education because they've been tagged and they have nowhere else to go. So you've created what you've tried to prevent. Doesn't make sense to me.
It doesn't make sense, and it's just been a complete loss. And you know what? I got to tell you, when we spoke earlier and hearing you now, it's such a pleasure to hear someone that is seeing things with the same eyes and can see it objectively. You know, and I know that there's a family of law enforcement, and no one's against the unity and the need for law enforcement. It's just that, you know, as you are advocating, let's take a look at the important things, and let's look at the lives that have been destroyed. I mean, you know, the millions of dollars that have been spent for nothing, and the scholarships that have been taken away. You know, I really enjoyed talking. We only have 3 minutes left on the show. I'd like to invite you to come back next week, and we'll talk during the week, as we said. And I think you're going to be at the press conference tomorrow, is what I understand. And I know everyone in the community is very excited to have you talking and speaking your mind and sharing your wisdom and from your experience. And it's even more meaningful because of your patient status and someone that found relief from cannabis, treating a condition that you developed while you were fighting for our country. And to treat that, you would be considered as breaking the law. So your courage and your wisdom of that whole experience, I can't tell you how much we appreciate you sharing. We want to have you back to talk about a lot more. So thank you very much, Lawrence. We got to go, though. We got to do our closing thoughts. Tell us your final comments, please.
Good night.
All right. We thank you. Those are the best.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. We're going to have you back, get more from you. Thank you, sir. Thank you for your service. All right. 2 minutes left. What? That was Lawrence Smith, of course, former retired Detroit police officer, Vietnam vet, and hero and courageous, outspoken person. 347-326-9626. Planet Creatures. Let's wrap it up real quick. 2 minutes. 1:48. Chad.
2 weeks from now, Representative Walsh, John Walsh, will be on the show. So listen in. Going to be interesting.
Jamie.
Okay, I go over all of the calendar again right now. Just come to all the stuff that we mentioned before.
Mike McShane, evidence
that marijuana cures cancer, most probably HIV.
Reporting every week. Planet Creatures. Kirsch.
Yeah, the thing I figured out, I got to rearrange the words a little bit, I think. In the last 3 years, medical marijuana has reduced the number of opiate pill consumers in Michigan by 100,000.
Nice.
Rick.
RepealToday.org, www.bigmacc.com, MichiganMedicalMarijuana.org. Use your resources to gain your power.
They left us no choice. We have to fight back. We made our case tonight. Evidence all over the place. Listen to the show. We laid it out there. We got exhibits A through F. And
lots of exhibits.
Next week, I'll start the show with my closing argument for the evidence as it presented. Sharmi, I want to thank Sharmi for calling in and sharing in safemish.org. We've got Lawrence Smith calling in. Thank you, retired Detroit police officer, veteran, and Pastor Chuck for his wealth of information that he shared.
Bob Redden. Engineer Thero, Bob Redden.
And Bob Redden, of course, hero.
And our sponsors.
Michigan Medical Marijuana Association, Creative Garden, Commoran Law. And